sometimes it would appear that we seem to accept accidents as an inevitable part of life.
Are any of you making any allegations against anyone else, or was it a case of someone stopped and banged in the back?
No, that van came down and ran straight into the back of me and pushed me into him and obviously into the one in front.
He did he?
While there's often dispute over the causes of accidents, it's usual to blame the drivers. Going too fast, travelling too close. But what about the vehicles we're driving?
The law concerning cars has just been changed to make them safer. But how many people know about it?
I haven't got a clue.
Something about a carburetor or something. Unleaded.
If I said something to do with tyres, would that help?
Oh yeah, the tread's got to be deeper now. 3 millimetres.
Don't know. As long as the 10-pence piece fits into the gaps.
Is it one something?
As of the 1st of January this year, the legal minimum tread depth has been increased from 1 millimetre to 1.6 millimetres, which is the EEC standard. We've come here to Mara, where Dunlop and Halfords have set up a test to see if there's any benefit to be gained from that increase, or whether it's just another piece of unnecessary European harmonisation.
The object of the test was to compare the stopping distance from 30 miles an hour using tyres with the new 1.6mm and the old 1mm depth of tread. Mara's test strip can offer a road surface with consistent wet conditions. The Rover test car had no ABS and the rear brakes disconnected to give safe, consistent stopping on this wet but not flooded road. OK then, let's mark that distance and see if there's any difference with the 1mm tyres. With the white car marking the average of several runs, measured by the automatic equipment, it was possible to compare the new legal minimum with the old 1mm law.
Well, 0.6 of a millimetre doesn't sound a lot, but it certainly makes a big difference to stopping distances.
In fact, the braking distance was reduced by about 25%, and that could easily be the difference between safety and disaster.
So what difference would it make with a half-worn tyre with, say, 3 millimetres of tread, or even with a brand new tyre with 7 or more millimetres?
The tread provides channels to get the water away from the contact between tyre and tarmac, and for a wet road like this, 3 millimetres or more does not make a lot of difference. Move to a flooded track and repeat the exercise, and now the 3 millimetre tyre is much worse, as its channels are saturated. But with the full 7 millimetres of tread, the stopping distance is unchanged.
But suppose there's no tread at all.
Back on the wet strip, steady speed, emergency stop.
Well, from 30 miles an hour, that was a long, long slide, but actually not that much longer than what was legal just last year, but a full 6.5 metres further than the new regulation tread depth. So clearly, that switch to 1.6 millimetres really is of benefit. But if that tread is so important in the wet, what happens in the dry?
When there's no need to shift water, the more rubber in contact with the tarmac, the better the braking. Switch on the automatic equipment and head for a dry strip of road, keep to a steady 30. Now, the bald tyre stops in about half the distance needed on the wet road, and better than either the half-worn or the brand new tyres. That's the basic reason why racing cars have slick tyres, at least for racing in the dry, but they also have softer, stickier rubber. With a test car fitted with racing tyres, we stop 20% shorter. The sort of performance that a racing driver exploits, not only in braking, but also in cornering, as when I brought the celebrity Rover 216 home in first place at Thruxton last spring.
And the Star Cars record is intact. Tiff Needell wins it. Ian Taylor.
Now, all this experimentation explains why we need decent tyres, but tells us nothing about how far it actually takes us to stop out on the open road.
Good tyres will help, but the drivers must still play their part. Do we travel too close together? Do we concentrate properly? Do we leave enough room to stop? Do we even know how far we need to come to a halt?
60 miles an hour is the limit on a road like this. It seems safe enough. But how easy would it be to stop if a tractor pulls out or the lorry parked just round the corner? How much room would I need to stop?
The Highway Code recommends allowing 2/3 of a second for thinking time. That's 20 yards at 60 miles an hour. Then the code says allow 60 yards for braking on a dry road with good brakes, making a total of 80 yards to stop from the instant of spotting the danger.
But nobody carries around numbers in their head. At least, not once they've passed their driving test. So we've asked a few volunteers to come along to judge that stopping distance on this sort of road.
To start with, we asked each driver to say whether they could stop from 60 miles an hour at this point before hitting the car we'd parked 40 yards away, although we didn't tell them the distance. 5 of our volunteers thought they could, so we asked them to watch on the test track. Suddenly, 60 miles an hour seemed a bit quicker. There would have been some rather red faces if I hadn't been in the next lane.
So it's after brake, it's not including thinking distance, it's just once you've hit the brakes, how soon will the car stop?
We then asked the whole group to estimate how far away Samantha would have to be to enable them to stop from 60 miles an hour without hitting her if she suddenly fell in the road. The estimates varied wildly.
Yeah, so you won't run her over, you won't run our Samantha over now. Now these dummies represent the points where our volunteers said Sam would be safe to stand if I started braking from where the car is now. Let's see who's got it right.
For these tests, all 4 brakes were working, but the anti-lock system was disconnected.
Now that should surprise a few people.
I think when there was just one person standing there, it was very deceiving, and it really put me out anyway.
Quite surprised, actually. When you're stationary, you're looking at it from a different point of view.
I think the noise of hitting the models was frightened me more than anything. Yes, very surprising.
It is a long way, yes. Quite surprised.
On the run-up, I thought that I probably got it wrong, but looking at it, we're right.
I just thought, well, it was a safe distance.
Yeah.
I like to be on the safe side.
In fact, our stopping distance in wet conditions was better than that quoted in the Highway Code for a dry road. When we activated the ABS, as you'd expect, the performance was even better. In our tests in the dry, we stopped in 2/3 of the distance quoted as the best to be expected according to the code. And that's just half of the distance needed to pass the MOT test. In other words, on a dry road, a modern car can stop 100% better than the legal minimum requirement. There is one class of vehicle where braking doesn't achieve such effective results. HGVs have the same legal minimum braking requirement as cars, but at best, they rarely exceed that minimum by much over 20%. With an articulated lorry weighing up to 38 tonnes, there's a lot of energy to dissipate. As a result, the brakes are more prone to fade, the tyres are harder to give an economic life, and even if braking could be more severe, the load might shift and overstress the front wheels. Next month, ABS, as fitted to this fully laden test vehicle, becomes a legal requirement for all new heavy trucks and trailers. Even so, when comparing stopping distance from 60 miles an hour, there's still a pretty dramatic difference between the family car and an articulated lorry.
So, while the performance of this truck is perfectly legal, and indeed in this case above average, it's still a pretty poor match for the abilities of cars that are along on the same roads. And while we don't have room to segregate cars and HGVs, take a tip from what lorry drivers do in cars and give them plenty of room.